Good afternoon. We are going to start a few minutes, but I have promised you all to tell you something about our fellow Kiwanian, Phil Kirk, that no one knew. And he didn't show up for 3 weeks, so I thought, you know what? Today is the day. So Phil, stand on up. This is really innocent because Phil never tells a lie, never. But when he was in the 2nd grade, he got 2 spankings because you would never guess that he is talking too much. And then he hadn't changed. Well, he has though, but he's become an introvert and very quiet. So Phil needs a little love. So if everybody sees him today, give him a little high five or a hug. Sorry, Phil, I hate to share that, but everybody wanted some good stuff. And I thought of all the things I could tell, that was the best. All right, I'm just teasing you. I do have a fun fact today. So this present Kiwanis member and his or her family together are the longest serving family member in the Kiwanis Club. Can you tell me who that is? It could be 2 families, but can you tell me one of the 2? So I had a Ramsey and a Taylor, but they're not the 2. Walker is in the close running, but there's still 2 others. But that's a good guess. One of them is actually here today. I think. I can't find them, but I've seen them. So John Brantley's grandfather and John Brantley together have 91 years of our 103 years in Kiwanis. John, will you stand up? John, will you stand up? John, will you stand up? Yeah. And the other family is Robert White, grandfather, father, and son. So, yay, Kiwanians, thank you. Now, if we'll all stand and say our defining statement. Kiwanis is a global organization of volunteers dedicated to improving the world, one child and one community at a time. And I'm happy to be back. So good to see you, and we will move into the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, Frank, would you share our invocation?
The president announced today that we bombed Iran again. The world's at war, and that kind of got me towards where I'm going with this invocation. And I happened to come across a fact that today on March 24th, 1944, 75 Allied prisoners of war escaped from a prison in Germany, a prison of war camp. 14 years earlier, Steve McQueen was born, and he later starred in the movie The Great Escape, which was based on that escape that happened today back in 1944. You know, in this time that we spend more time talking about things that separate us rather than things that bring us together, I looked for a prayer about prisoners of war, because what's going on right now over in Europe is creating a lot of prisoners of war. God, we pray for soldiers and civilians who are being held in captivity all over the world, those we know about and those hidden from view. Only you, God, can bring the good news to the poor and precious freedom to the captives. Please give us the courage to seek justice for those being detained unjustly. Amen.
Thank you, Frank. Buck, will you introduce our guests? I think we have some on Zoom as well.
Yeah. 2 of our guests are here today, and we really appreciate them, and they are guests of Stacy, and you can introduce them.
Hi, I have 2 friends here, Elizabeth Bueno and Joyce Rivera. Please stand up. Elizabeth is the manager of the administrative operations at the North Carolina Education Lottery, and Joyce is the manager of customer service team at the North Carolina Education Lottery.
We welcome both of you and ask you to come back again. Yes, sir.
When I first joined the club, he was speaking of POWs, we had 2 members in this club that were POWs during the Second World War. They're both deceased.
Oh,
Thank you for
Thank
letting
you
us
for
know about
sharing.
that. Do we have any other guests today? Okay, as far as items under membership welfare, at 2 o'clock today will be the funeral for Gillum Nicholson. He used to be a member of this club. He suffered from cancer, and I understand it helped prolong his life because his goal was to be able to come back to Kiwanis one more time. So let's remember him in our prayers and our thoughts. Are there any other people that we need to think about?
I'd just let you know that Chris, we just lost his name. His dad was a member here. Chris
Dillon?
Chris Dillon had an operation last week for cancer, and he's appeared to be doing okay. But we tried to get him in here. I keep trying to get him here, but
He's a member,
I know, but I can't.
but can't get him to come. So thank you for trying, and please keep us posted on his recovery.
And keep him in your prayers also. Are there any other announcements about members? If not, I believe that's all we've got for right now.
Thank you, Buck. We have a few announcements. Our board has agreed to sponsor a Kiwanis club in Cary. Cary has not had an active club for 5 years. And one way for you to help is to think about who you know in Cary that would be a good Kiwanian. And who needs Kiwanis? The kids of Cary. So let us know. Please share their contact information with Chris White. If you want to be involved with that, please let us know. We'd love to have you join Chris, Buck, and myself in organizing that club. Just want to make sure everybody knows, we do meet next Friday, but we do not meet Good Friday. And we have some exciting news. Last week, we had 4 members that completed orientation. 3 of them are here today. I'm going to call all their names, but the 3 that are here come forward. Jason Tyson, Robbie Wood, Bob Lippard, and Glenn Gentzer. So if you will come forward with your sponsor, we are happy to have you here. So as you're walking up, Salvation Army, I want to thank Bob Goodell, Sandra Burkhart, and Cricket and Glenn for serving at the Salvation Army tonight. So thank you. The diaper drive, Scott?
I thought we'd made it clear we had a diaper drive, and somebody asked me today, don't we have a diaper drive in August? So maybe we hadn't got the point across. Next week's the last week. I have not been run over by anybody getting in line to make contributions. It's been a bit of a slow trickle, but we've had a steady amount coming. So if you can, you wish to, this week and next week, please.
Andy Wood, we'd like to hear a little bit. Do we have a title sponsor for the golf tournament?
Thank you. Yeah, so if you know of anybody, maybe business owner, or just somebody that really wants to see their name in bright lights, we'd love to have you for the title sponsor. Keep it on your calendar, put it on your calendar, May the 4th. It's Thursday, coming up fast for the golf tournament. Yes, sir, question? Well, it's one of these things that's up to your discretion, but we'd love to have $2,500 plus. Yeah, feel free. In the past, it's been $2,500. So if you feel so led, if you want to do it for $2,000 this year, we'll take it for $2,000. Are we going to auction this thing off? We'll do that. We'll auction it off. We might get more money that way. But May the 4th, it's a Thursday. Put it on your calendar. Call me, email me something. Come play golf. If not, volunteer. Come hang out outside. It's a great day. You'll have fun, and it's raising money for kids.
Thank you, Andy. Alice just said to remind everyone, Charter Night is April the 24th. The sign up, that's a Friday night. It's at the University Club. It is a fun time. The sign up sheets are on the table. Please sign those so we can get a count for food. And the HAMP has this, I'm sorry, it's April the 28th, but it's a Friday night. Thank you, HAMP. I didn't have that written on my paper. Mac Jenkins also asked us to share. We are volunteering with the Miracle League. We had a great time. We had over 20 Kiwanians show up the last time we did that. We will be doing that on May 13th from 11 to 2. So if you're able to do that, please send Courtney or Mac an email so we can get you on the sign-up list. We want to have a minimum of 20. Okay, so what we're all waiting for is the introduction of our new members, and we have everybody in place. One of the best ways to share passion for the Kiwanis Club and commitment to the community and for service is to welcome our new members. Today, we're very pleased to welcome Lynn, Bob, and Jason. Robbie couldn't be with us today, but he'll do it next month. The vision of Kiwanis is to have a positive influence in our communities worldwide so that one day all children will wake up in the communities they believe in, nurture them, and provide the support they need to thrive. Lynn, Bob, Jason, and Robbie have indicated a desire to become an active member of our club, and having been approved by the board of directors as a member and having gone through our club orientation, do you agree to embrace the vision of our club and Kiwanis organization? I do. Lynn, Bob, and Jason, we welcome you to this global organization of volunteers dedicated to improving the world, one child and one community at a time. Laura, would you like to introduce Lynn?
This is my friend Lynn Gensler. She's lived in Raleigh since 1985. She's a retired Broughton High School library media coordinator. She's widowed. She has one son that lives in Oregon and one daughter who lives in Georgia. Welcome.
Thank you.
You know the saying, what's done in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas? Well, Bob Lippert has me sworn to what happened in York Township, Pennsylvania stays in York Township, Pennsylvania. Bob and I were fraternity brothers at Chapel Hill at the same time, had a lot of fun, including that trip. We didn't see each other for 15 or 20 years. We both moved back to Raleigh. Ann and I moved back in 86, and Bob moved back with his family in 88. Lifetime hospital administrator, been retired for about 10 years now, and two or three great joys. One is his children, both his son and his daughter and their spouses, both live in Raleigh. Who's jealous of that? And he's a great tennis player and a great friend. He's going to be a great Kiwani. Bob Lippert.
And Jefferson could not be here today, but he nominated Jason to introduce himself to you. Jason, come on up.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm so thrilled to be a part of this club and to join you all. I am a third generation Kiwanian. My grandfather was a Kiwanian, my father is a Kiwanian, and my brother is also a Kiwanian, all in the Fayetteville Club. So I felt called, and it's sort of in my blood to do this. Right now I'm working for the State Department of Insurance. I'm the communications director there. And I've been in that role for about a year, and I've been with the state for about 7 years. So I'm glad to be here, and I've lived in Raleigh, and I play a lot of tennis too, so I'll have to get out on the court. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I will tell you, this group is on the ball. They have already completed their welcome, their greeters. Jason has already done an inter-club visit. So they are well on their way. So take a minute, introduce yourselves and get to know them. And I would say, on behalf of the Kiwanis Club, we welcome you to be a part of our community. Thank you. Buck, are you ready to introduce the speaker? Oh, and I have one more award while Buck is coming up. I've got two. A little bit ago, we talked about at midwinter, under Sandra's leadership, the Raleigh Kiwanis Club was identified as being a distinguished club. And so you have a patch that we will present to you on behalf of the Kiwanis Club. And Robert Cooper was named a distinguished Kiwanian on behalf because of all that you're doing. Well, I can't tell. So thank you. You want me, and I'm not going to pin him. Oh. Thank you. Okay.
Got it?
What, now Phil, was that you talking? Do we need to talk to your second grade teacher? Oh.
Thank you all. Our speaker today is from the National Weather Service. And Mark Twain always said, everybody talks about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. I want to introduce you to somebody today that does something about it. He doesn't change the weather. He doesn't make the weather, but he reacts to the weather and reacts for our safety. The National Weather Service is an agency of the United States federal government, and it's tasked with providing weather forecast, warnings of hazardous weather, and other weather-related events, and so the public will know what to do from the purpose of protection, safety, and general information. They're part of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It's based in suburban Washington, D.C. Our speaker is Nick Petro. He's a warning coordinator meteorologist at the National Weather Service Forecast Office here in Raleigh. We do have a National Weather Service office in Raleigh, and we're proud of that. Originally, he's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He attended Penn State. He received a degree in meteorology in 1997. He's been with the National Weather Service since February of 1999 and has worked in Newport, North Carolina, Tampa, Florida, Flagstaff, Arizona, and now back in Raleigh. As a warning coordinator meteorologist, Nick serves as the principal interface between the Raleigh Forecast Office and the users of the National Weather Service products. He's also responsible for carrying out an awareness program designed to educate the public about severe weather hazards and preparing for their protection of life and property. Let's give a Kiwanis welcome to Nick Petro.
Okay, thank you so much. It's great to be here. And thank you so much to Buck and to the club for the invitation to come and speak with you today. A great pleasure. And thank you too for the wonderful, wonderful meal and lunch. That was fantastic. So the National Weather Service, thank you for that great introduction to the Weather Service, Buck. I appreciate that. And as he mentioned, our mission is protection of life and property. It's real simple. We want the country to be prepared. And for whatever the reason, it seems like we're having, more and more, these weather-related disasters. Now, I don't know I'm not a climatologist. I don't know what the cause is. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just we live in such a well-connected world that now we're hearing about things that we never heard before. Maybe, I don't know much about this climate change thing. My expertise is the next 7 days, and after that, I turn it over to the climatologist. So I don't talk anything about climate change. All I know is the weather's going to change in the next 24 hours. So anyway, and climate change or not, I'm here in the now, you're here in the now, our families are here in the now, and we've got a lot of bad weather at some point in time that's going to affect us. So I don't worry about 50 or 100 years down the road. I worry about what's going to happen to our lives and our safety today, tomorrow, and out through the next 7 days, and as far as I can tell you. So that's kind of a little bit about my perspective, because a lot of people ask me, do I chase severe storms? Am I a storm chaser when I tell them I work for the National Weather Service? No, I don't chase storms, because if you wait long enough, the storms will come to you. I'm not gonna go out to the plains and chase a tornado. There's a good chance I'll see some really bad weather here in the next season or two or a year or two. So anyway, we need to be prepared. And that's a big part of my job as a warning coordination meteorologist, to make sure everybody's coordinated. And that means knowing what to do when the bad weather strikes. Okay, so I really appreciate these opportunities to get out and speak with clubs, with groups, with civic organizations, business, schools. I gave a school presentation yesterday. I don't spend a whole lot of time at the office except when the really bad weather's happening. And when I'm at the office, when the bad weather's happening, I'm coordinating with the media, the people you see on TV. They're our big voice. But we don't compete with anybody. We don't have any competitors. The TV stations, of course, compete with each other, but we don't compete with the TV stations. We don't have to. You know, we're already paid. Our bills are paid by taxpayers. Of course, we're a federal government agency. So we're not trying to raise revenue, make ads on our website. You know, y'all, we exist for you. So we're not trying to put any spin on the weather. We're not trying to hype it. We're just simply trying to keep you safe. And that's really our mission. We're trying to basically sort of, you know, leverage the capabilities, the technology, the interconnections of the world to really help keep people safe. So again, while we do see sort of an increase in extreme weather related incidents, and while a previous NOAA administrator, Dr. Sullivan, has said there in her quote, we can't stop extreme events from happening, but we can surely come together and find ways to make our societies more dynamically resilient in the face of those threats. So that is what Weather Ready Nation is all about. If you ever hear that terminology, what is Weather Ready Nation? It's basically building resilience, because, you know, again, the storm's going to come to us at some point in time. We don't know when. We hope we continue to have beautiful weather. But what does a Weather Ready Nation look like? It's knowing your risk, taking actions to stay safe, and being an example and helping to spread the word. That's what a Weather Ready Nation looks like. So in order to carry out our mission, we have 122 local offices around the country. I've had the opportunity to work at the Newport office, which is right down by Atlantic Beach at the coast. I've had the opportunity to work at our Tampa office, out in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is really one of the most adventurous places I've ever been to in my life. Was only there for 2 years, and I wish I had spent more time because it was something of an adventure every single day. Flagstaff, Arizona is up at 7,000 feet elevation, so it's not like the deserts and the rest of Arizona that are kind of like desert climate and dry. It's just very beautiful, lots of hiking opportunities, skiing, mountains, just really cool place. Sedona, 30 minutes away, tons of snow. I love snow, by the way. I love snow. So anyway, I was a little disappointed in this past winter, but that's just how it goes here in central North Carolina. Anyway, and now, you know, my kids were born when I worked at the Newport office, you know, almost 2 decades ago, or more than 2 decades ago. My kids were born there at the coast, so wanted to get back to North Carolina, and here we are in Raleigh. Anyway, each National Weather Service office has a area of coverage. We call it our county warning area, and you can kind of see how it's broken down there. And here in central North Carolina, our office, which by the way is physically located on NC State Centennial Campus. Okay, and we could have leased office space anywhere, but we chose NC State because NC State has a really good meteorology program. Okay, and meteorology, it's one of those fields where, you know, there's a lot of engineering schools, there's a lot of pre-med schools, there's a lot of, you know, universities that offer similar programs, but not a whole lot of universities offer a 4-year Bachelor of Science in Meteorology. There's probably only like maybe 3 that offer really legit meteorology programs in North Carolina. NC State is one of them, and really is the program is quite well done, and so we lease space there so we can have a close connection to the university, and basically you know, have a tie into the students who come and help us out, volunteer, have a tie into the university, to the professors, and do research. But anyway, that's where we're located, but we serve the counties you see highlighted here on the map. 31 counties in central North Carolina. So anytime there's a need for any type of weather warnings, you know, tornado warning, severe thunderstorm warning, flash flood warning, winter storm warning, heat advisory, hurricane warning, you know, they originate from the National Weather Service, no matter how you hear about it. If you see it on TV, see it on a cell phone app, hear it on the radio, it doesn't matter which channel you're watching, that warning that you just heard or may have heard originated from us. For those 31 counties, that's our responsibility. Now, the National Weather Service is a little bit beyond just the 122 local offices. We've got other big issues to deal with, such as who's going to run our supercomputers. Okay, so we have the Environment Modeling Center up in DC. Who's going to look at beyond day 7? I'm not going to look at beyond day 7. I only know out to day 7. I'm going to turn this over to day 8 and beyond to the climate folks. So we have a climate prediction center up in DC who takes care of days 8 and beyond. We have experts in hurricane forecasting, okay, in National Hurricane Center and so on, Aviation Weather Center, Space Weather Prediction Center, believe it or not, space weather. You know, you probably may have heard in national news all these stories about these solar flares. Well, it's a part of the National Weather Service, even though solar flares isn't weather. They kind of fall under our umbrella because the National Weather Service, has a dissemination network and system to let you know when bad things are happening. So we have the Space Weather Prediction Center in Boulder, Colorado. So a lot of what we call national weather services. Well, what about rivers? Do we forecast rivers in our Raleigh office? No, we can't predict all these little specialties that fall under weather. So we have these national centers, and we have what's known as 13 river forecast centers. The folks who work at river forecast centers are specialists in how, you know, what happens once the precipitation hits the ground and runs off and eventually finds its way to rivers. So they have the modeling, the science, the know-how, the expertise, and how the rivers will behave. So we have 13 river forecast centers. Well, what about aviation? Well, yeah, the aviation, the weather's a big part in aviation. So without getting too deep into the weeds of how this works and how the nation's airspace works, there's these national centers that manage the air traffic once it departs, or the airports that they're departing from. So for example, well, there's 22 of them. So for example, the Jacksonville, Florida CWSU, Center Weather Service unit there, what they do is they work hand in hand in the same room as the FAA air traffic controllers that manage the air traffic and airspace in that area that's highlighted red across the southeast US. And they're basically providing the weather information to those air traffic controllers so they can route the planes and route around bad weather. Again, those are one of our sort of specialty offices, as I like to call it. There's of course, yeah. So anyway, that's sort of a little glimpse into the structure, the makeup of the National Weather Service. But your sort of let me back up here. Your interaction with the National Weather Service is mostly coming from our local office that's physically located on Centennial Campus, the Raleigh National Weather Service office. So that's sort of the day-to-day interaction between how you'll have exposure to National Weather Service products and services, okay? So anyway, I just thought I'd throw this in here. So this is how North Carolina is sort of divvied up. Okay, so the counties you see in brown, that's served by the National Weather Service in Wilmington, North Carolina. And as I mentioned, I started my career at the Newport office, which is down there by Atlantic Beach. They serve the counties in green and the adjacent coastal waters. Our office in Raleigh is the purple area, and so on. You can kind of get a sense that believe it or not, North Carolina is served by 7 different National Weather Service offices. But you wouldn't know it. There's no like visible seams in the data. It's seamless. We collaborate with all the neighboring offices to make sure we're singing from the same sheet of music. So when there's severe weather passing from one National Weather Service coverage area to another, they hand off, most of the weather comes from the west around here. So we're dealing a lot with the Greenville-Spartanburg National Weather Service office and the Roanoke National Weather Service office, and they're passing those warnings off to us seamlessly into our area. So anyway, that's how the state of North Carolina is served. Now, what about the actual products and services that originate from our office in Raleigh? Well, this collage kind of demonstrates the whole range of products and services. Everything from the weather warnings, the advisories. We do a local aviation forecast for 5 airports across central North Carolina for takeoff and landing conditions. Once that plane is in the air and beyond 5 miles of the airport, then they get their weather information from those CWSUs that I talked about. We have a hydrologist on our staff who keeps track of how the water is impacting our local river systems and streams, and basically is our expert for the potential for flooding. We have NOAA Weather Radio. We maintain the NOAA Weather Radio broadcast. So if anybody here has a NOAA Weather Radio, you flip that on, hear that voice giving out the weather report. The audio from that originates from us. We work with forest agencies in the various North Carolina and U.S. Forest Service to prepare what's called a fire weather forecast, so that the foresters know if there's a potential for rapid spread of wildfire, if there happens to be a wildfire or even a prescribed burn. So those are all things that get done every day, day in and day out, regardless of the weather. So a lot of folks say, well, what do you do on a day like today? It's sunny. You just sit around, don't do anything, watch TV or something. No, we've got a ton of products and services that we're doing every day, day in and day out. And we're preparing, we're looking ahead to see when the next dangerous weather event is going to happen, because you know what? That's our number one mission. When most people know us from our warning services, and that's what we're always prepared for, is for the warnings for things like tornadoes, for damaging winds, for large hail, flash flooding, winter storms, hurricanes, you name it. We are prepared. We're ready to deal with and warn you of any of those approaching hazards. Now, this was really, I think, back in the early days of my career, I had a lot of opportunities to do some of these fun things like you see in the upper right, launching the weather balloons. Now, don't get me wrong, my job today and my entire career is entirely fun, but I don't get to launch weather balloons anymore, so I do kind of miss that, right? I had the opportunity to launch weather balloons in hurricanes, in storms that were producing tornadoes, and it's just such a blast, and never more was our balloon program was never more highlighted than when the Chinese balloon was moving across the U.S. Okay, because everybody was focused on that balloon at 60,000 feet taking pictures. Meanwhile, there are literally 800 weather balloons launched across the world twice a day. 800, or now it's coordinated. So whenever we launch our balloon, all the other 799 locations around the world are also launching their balloon at the same time. We launch these weather balloons to basically capture a snapshot of the humidity, the temperature, the wind speed, wind direction, and air pressure around the world at a given snapshot in time. Because, before we can make a prediction, we have to know what the current state of the atmosphere is, right? You wouldn't go out and buy a stock without looking at what's the history of the stock, what's the current health of the stock, what's the health of the company. You do your due diligence, right? So the weather balloon provides the data that's like sort of our due diligence of the weather, or at a given point in time. It's our starting point for what we're predicting the weather will do today, tomorrow, the next day, the next 7 days. Okay, so 800 of these, no, 1,600 of these go up every day. And so we were so focused as a nation on a balloon, and I'm like, man, if people only knew how many of these things were up in the atmosphere. So, these things are in the air a lot, so as you could imagine. But the good news is our balloons are small compared to the balloon that the Chinese balloon that crossed the U.S. They're fairly small, even though on that image it looks like they're huge, but that's small compared to the balloon that the news were focused on. Anyway, those things go up there. You can see the thing that popped out of his hand just a moment ago. That's a sensor. That's the instrument that collects the data. It sends the data back over radio frequency to our ground stations that collect the data, analyze the data in real time. That balloon is going up about 1,000 feet per minute. So it's out of the airspace that commercial planes would fly within about 30, 40 minutes. So it's, and all the pilots worldwide know that these things happen at 11Z and 23Z universal coordinated time. So they're aware, they know they're there, they know where they're rising, they know how to avoid them. I'm not aware of any time one of our weather balloons, impacted or intersected an aircraft. It's just the aviation community is aware of them. Anyway, the balloon goes up. It continues to go up into the atmosphere. As on the way up, it's getting larger and larger and larger. Eventually, it stretches to a point where it can't stretch anymore, and the balloon bursts. And once it bursts, we quit collecting data from it. It bursts at an altitude of about 100,000 feet above the ground. So we were way up there, well above even the Chinese balloon. We were almost twice as high as that balloon was floating by the time it pops. And so anyway, the orange thing on there is a parachute, because obviously once it pops, it comes back down. And the parachute's there to slow its fall. It takes about 90 minutes to reach an altitude of 100,000 feet, about 30 minutes to come back down, and the wind carries it to wherever its resting point is going to be. We don't make any attempt to retrieve it. We track it while it's going up, but we quit tracking it as soon as it pops, and then wherever it lands, it lands. But on the actual instrument, if somebody were to happen to find one, there are instructions on what to do with it. Basically, we just say, throw everything away except for the box, and then in the box, we have a large envelope that has the address and postage already on it. It's tucked away in there. You open that package, you put the box in there, you drop it off at your post office, and it goes back and it's reconditioned. Only about 1 out of every 5 are found and sent back to us. So anyway, that's our weather balloons. Thought I'd spend a little bit time explaining that, since I know there's a lot of interest in balloons these days. So anyway, there's some other tools there. In the lower right is our automatic surface observing system. Those are found at every airport across the country. Helps pilots, serves as a very accurate data set for us to use for surface conditions. What you see in the middle upper part and the upper left, that's our radar. So the radar that serves central North Carolina is physically located in Clayton, and right along Business 70. Inside that dome is the dish you see there spinning on the animation. That dish has a radio transmitter, sends out pulses of energy. The energy hits raindrops, snowflakes, hailstones, bugs, birds, dirt, pollen, anything that's of smaller size. The energy's scattered, some of it comes back. The big dish, 28 feet in diameter, is there to collect those weak signals. And then it's processed and displayed. The strength of that return is processed and displayed like you see in the upper left. So, the bigger the raindrop, the more energy that comes back. So we color code that, oranges, reds, and basically that tells us that's where the heavy rain's occurring, or the large hail. The lighter rain is the blue and green shades in this example. So anyway, that's some of our equipment. And sort of, let me just jump to the next slide here. This is our operations center. So this is where all the data flows. And this is a team effort typically. Well, if you've ever been to a 911 center, or if you've ever seen one of those on TV, it kind of resembles a 911 call center, where there's all these workstations, 5 monitors per workstation. We typically, on a fair weather day, have 3 people there around the clock. So we run 3 shifts a day. Weather occurs 24 hours a day, so we're there 24/7, 365. I took this photo on a day when we're under tornado watch, and it was all hands on deck. So we had 2 people working the radar, watching for storms, issuing warnings, another person watching the rivers, 2 people there. In fact, even 1 NC State student who was there volunteering, helping us out, collecting ground truth reports. We had a person, we funneled all the routine stuff that I showed earlier on the slide that gets done day in and day out. That still needs done even during bad weather. So we filter that down to 1 person. So it's if there was ever an opportunity to visit a National Weather Service office in person, the severe weather day would be the day to see it. That's the excitement. That's when the magic happens. And where everybody there, as you could tell, is focused on tracking storms and trying to warn you and give you as much time as possible to prepare and to seek shelter. Now, of course, we can't do that mission, the mission of protection of life and property, on our own. So we basically have these great partnerships that we work with to help keep everybody safe. So our 15 meteorologists, we have 15 meteorologists at our office working rotating shifts for 24/7, 365 coverage. But whenever there's bad weather coming, we're communicating with the TV media. So I've gotten to know every single person you see on TV doing the weather. They were just at our office a couple weeks ago for a workshop, and a training workshop we hosted for them. But we get to know all the TV weather people, because when the bad weather's happening, we are basically telling them what to say. We're feeding them information, and they're getting our warnings out. We're working with DOT, 911, partnering agency, emergency management, first responders, the school officials. Whenever there's a winter storm coming, they're calling my phone. They're calling me, and if I'm not available, they're calling our operations center, and they're getting their briefings on what's going to happen. When's the weather going to move in? So they can make their decision on whether to close school or not. So unfortunately, the least common denominator for whether schools are closing or not is right here, me. And it's our team if I'm not available. So anyway, my kids would always ask me, the day before of bad weather. Is school going to be closed tomorrow? They'd say, can you help get us closed tomorrow? So anyway, but partnerships are so incredibly important, working together to keep everybody safe. All right, let's see. I want to make sure I stay on time here. So a couple things I want to share in terms of just some general weather information. What differentiates an ordinary thunderstorm from a severe thunderstorm, right? Because you've got them on your phones, heard them on TV, radio. Do you do anything when you get a severe thunderstorm warning? Yeah. What about a tornado warning? Do you do anything when you get a tornado warning? You should. A tornado warning, you should seek shelter. Let me see, I think I have a slide for that. Tornado warning. Okay, so proper tornado shelters. If you get a tornado warning, you want to put as many walls between you and the outside, okay? If you have a basement is ideal. Going below ground is ideal. I'm not talking about a crawl space. I had a couple folks ask me, should I go into my crawl space if I get a tornado warning? And the answer to that is absolutely no. Because I've seen homes, particularly modular homes, okay, that are built up on blocks and have a crawl space. Those modular homes are built really, really well, right? Because they're built in factories, indoors. It's amazing the strength of a modular home. At least the ones I've known or seen, I've even owned I lived in a modular home for many years, and I tried to tear a window out and replace it with some French doors. And it was like, oh my God, to tear that thing apart was like almost impossible. There was, nails and glue, and I mean, it was just crazy how well those things were built. Well, you know what happens when a tornado hits a modular type home? I'm not talking a trailer. I'm not talking like a trailer, single wide or double wide. I'm talking a modular home that chunks are built in and they're connected together. A modular home doesn't basically, you don't lose the roof or walls collapse. They get picked up and moved off. They slide. We call them sliders, and when I do those surveys, right? Because they'll slide off, when a tornado hits it, it will literally slide 10, 15, 20, 30 feet off its foundation, be turned around. It'll be like, oh my gosh, that house is in perfect shape. Just slide it back onto its foundation and keep going. Well, unfortunately, there was a tornado survey I did a few years back where there was a modular home that was built, and right behind the home was a cliff, okay? And the home was blown off the foundation, and then the home fell over the cliff, and then it disintegrated as it rolled down the cliff. And unfortunately, there were 2 people inside, and they didn't make it. So, so I know I'm never gonna. I've owned modular homes before, and if I own one again, I'm not gonna put it on a hillside because. Not to make light of it. I mean, those people lost their lives, but I use that as a lesson, because if you seek shelter in a crawl space, that modular home could shift and then fall on you and crush you. Okay, so anyway, I got off on a tangent there, but basement, okay, if it's a regular basement, that's great. If you don't have a basement, my current home is built on a concrete slab, so my shelter is an interior room on the lowest floor. I want to put as many walls between me and the outside. Okay. All right, where did I leave off with? Okay, severe thunderstorm warnings. So if you get a severe thunderstorm warning, most people don't do anything. It's my perception, right? Well, number one, do you even know there's a severe thunderstorm warning? How do you know, right? The tornado warnings and flash flood warnings are distributed to people's cell phones, but severe thunderstorm warnings are not. So what I always encourage people to do is to have a cell phone app, like a free app, like a FEMA app or a Red Cross app that delivers severe thunderstorm warnings to your phone. And then that's how you know. Well, what does a severe thunderstorm even mean? It just simply means that the thunderstorm is expected to cause wind or hail damage. Real simple. If we expect damage from a thunderstorm, not tornado, but just wind or hail damage, we issue a severe thunderstorm warning. So what do? You want to take shelter indoors. Get away from windows. Real simple. That's not a whole lot to remember, right? A tornado warning, on the other hand, means you want to get into your designated shelter, okay? And by the way, the slides I skipped over real quick. There's a difference between a tornado and a funnel cloud. Did you know that if it's not touching the ground, we call that a funnel cloud? And once it touches the ground, then its name changes to tornado. So just a little neat fact. All right, so that's proper tornado shelters. What about flooding? Question time? Okay, great. All right, so anyway, we have 10 minutes left, so we're at the Q&A time. But just real quick, I just want to remind folks that we can get flooding of all types around central North Carolina, particularly in urban areas. So all these types of flooding can be a threat to life and property. So most flash flood deaths and flood deaths occur in automobiles. Okay, so whatever you do, if you encounter flooding, don't try to drive through it. And I promise this is my last slide, even if it doesn't look that bad, okay? We've probably seen this. We've probably all driven through a scenario like this. Even if it doesn't look that bad, you never can tell what the condition of the road underneath is. A lot of times when water flows over a road, it chews away at the road, results in sinkholes or other problems. Once your car gets stuck in this, it's only a matter of time before your car starts to float and then you get in trouble. So as we say in this last slide, turn around, don't drown. So with that, I think there's some time for questions, and I really, really appreciate, again, the opportunity to be here today.
I am amazed at how accurately the weather is predicted. How far out can you accurately predict weather, and how does time affect that the farther out it gets?
It really just depends on the scenario, each scenario, how accurate. I don't want to necessarily just say, the next 24 hours is perfect, because it's not necessarily perfect. Things change pretty rapidly. I've been working with Johnston County Emergency Management the last 2-3 days, briefing them about the weather conditions for the air show. Anybody here going to the air show at Johnston County Regional Airport tomorrow? It's sold out, apparently. Big air show in Johnston County. But there's some storms forecast to move across. So, and that could really mean for a pretty dangerous situation to the folks who are gathered there. So yesterday, it looked like it would be dry on Saturday. Today, I go to the office, call up the data. The data now shows a squall line moving through, and it's like, oh my God, it's like, what a change in 24 hours. And that happens. That's the weather. It's Mother Nature. It's, there's so many moving parts of the atmosphere. It's sometimes we're spot on a day, 2 days out. Sometimes we get lucky and we're spot on 7 days out. But I'll tell you, generally speaking, the further you get away from hour zero, which is the here and now, the further you get away from that, the less accurate it becomes in general.
Have all the recent news about artificial intelligence, is that going to help, or is that going to do anything for your ability to predict the weather?
So yeah, it will, but we've been incorporating artificial intelligence like strategies in our weather prediction for a long time, because we have an old saying, the past can predict the future, right? So we have weather data and records going back 150 years, right? We have weather models going back 50 years or so. So what we do is we plug in the weather model data into a database. We plug in the observational data into the database, and we do a statistical analysis and statistical just sort of regression analysis to find out what happened the last time the models suggested that would happen. And so we run these, we call it model output statistics. And basically we run our models and then we analyze it for past events. And that helps us fine tune the forecast. So it's already, and it has been helping us quite a bit. We just didn't call it AI, Yes.
We have National Guard located all around the state. We have numerous military bases. Does the National Weather Service have any type of collaboration with the Department of Defense regarding weather forecasting domestically and international, or do they just have their own defense weather service? How does that work? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So we don't really, we collaborate with the military for usually stuff happening in our coverage area. So for example, we provide weather briefings to Fort Bragg, to the Army, and for the movement of stuff, I'll say, and movement of resources. When it comes to what's the weather doing over in somewhere else, in some theater somewhere, they have their own folks that do that. So So, we can, there's a lot of security implications there. So yeah, we have nothing to do with what is happening in the battlefield or in places where, the military is staged or has, resources. But if it's something that is affecting the homeland, we're assisting the military with that. All right.
I think all the weather services refer to North American model or the European model. How is that, your service, how is it interface with those modeling services?
Well, everything that happens in the atmosphere can be described by a mathematical equation. Okay, so you can simulate via mathematical equations and models, what's happening now and what will happen in the future. Time is just one of the variables in those equations. So you plug in the current conditions, you plug in the equation, there's a temperature equation, for example. You put in all the variables, the current conditions, and the one open variable is the time, and you run that model, but you have to do it literally for every single piece of air around us, right? Well, we don't have the computing power to do that. So we basically create a grid over the US and might do it, at certain points every 2.5 kilometers apart from each other, and it covers the world. Well, the more grid spaces you have, the better your model is going to be. So it really just boils down to which model has the most computing power. So the bigger the supercomputer, the better the weather model, the more space you can resolve on a model. And so, it's just unbelievable the number of models out there. You hear about the North American model, the global forecast system, which the US Weather Service runs both of those. You hear about the European model, which the European Center for Meteorology runs. You hear about the UK Met model, which the UK Weather Agency runs. And that's just like literally a couple out of literally hundreds and hundreds of models that are available. Do you know, we used to run our own model on a laptop. I could run a weather model on this Mac, on this laptop. Now, it might take a while to run because it's not a supercomputer, but I can resolve a weather prediction just using a laptop. And the idea though is, we have access to all that data. And we try to take a look at all the data and provide a range of possibilities. So that's how we leverage all that information.
Nick, thank you so much. We've got a resolution today. We appreciate it.
We donate this to the school system, and so we'll go back to the bill and sign the names. We will close today with a resolution. Before we do, I want to thank Elizabeth and Joyce for joining us today. And I want everybody to remember the diaper drive. Scott shared that. I don't remember the dollar amount collected. Sandra, do you have that? So we've collected over 1,300 for the diaper drive. We had lots of announcements today. Any contacts in Cary? Chris would like to know those for the new club that we were forming there. All the new events, check our website. They're all there. We are going to have a resolution in honor of Mr. Gastineau, and Phil Kirk will read that for us, and then he will ring the bell for a moment of silence afterwards.
Memorial resolution in honor and recognition of John Sherman Gastineau. Whereas John Sherman Gastineau, son of William and Lydia Gastineau, was born on July 28, 1935 in Switz City, Indiana, and died on November 2nd, 2021 at age 86 in Raleigh. Whereas John Gastineau served in the U.S. Navy as a yeoman aboard a ship in the Pacific Fleet. In 1958, he graduated from Indiana State University, where he majored in business. He enjoyed a long and successful career in insurance, retiring in 2018. And whereas John Gastineau loved life and all that came with it, he was a devoted husband, father, grandfather, and friend. He was quick to laugh, dance, and help a neighbor. He enjoyed playing golf with friends and was a passionate sports fan, never losing his loyalty for his Indiana team, but also adopting the Tar Heels. And whereas John Gastineau was a man of strong faith, a member of Grace Raleigh, the Shrine Club, and numerous other professional and community organizations. And whereas John Gastineau was predeceased by his parents, William and Lydia, his brother Robert, and his sister Harriet, he was survived by his beloved wife Kathy of Raleigh, his son John Gastineau of Chapel Hill, his daughter Mary Barnhill and her husband Douglas of Chapel Hill, his stepdaughter Stephanie Davies of Parker, Colorado, his stepson Matthew Hoyes of Raleigh, and several grandchildren and step-grandchildren. And whereas John Gastineau became a Kiwanian in 1973 and joined the Kiwanis Club of Raleigh in 2002, he served as a division lieutenant governor, as risk manager for the Carolinas District, and especially enjoyed chairing our annual Charter Night event for many years. He received the C.A. Dillon Jr. Fellowship Award, the George F. Hickson Fellowship Award, the Carl B. Hyatt Fellowship Award, and the Walter Zeller Fellowship Award. Whereas John Gastineau was a loving family man who opened his heart and offered sound advice and counsel to his friends, to his children and to his grandchildren, and to the members of the Kiwanis Club of Raleigh, who recognized him as a suitable role model for any citizen who seeks to make a positive impression among his family and to leave his community a better place than he found it. Whereas the Kiwanis Club of Raleigh desires to recognize, honor, and emulate the life of John Sherman Gastineau and the quality of the relationships he built. Therefore, it be it resolved that the Kiwanis Club of Raleigh hereby memorializes the life of a loyal member, John Sherman Gastineau, celebrates his career, and commends to all a life well lived and a demonstrated dedication to his family, to his friends, and to his community. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread upon the minutes of the Kiwanis Club of Raleigh, and be it finally resolved that a copy of the resolution be provided to the Gastineau family as an expression of the affection and respect of the Kiwanis Club of Raleigh for its member, John Sherman Gastineau. Make a motion that this resolution be approved. Is there a second? All in favor say aye.